Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The train station stranger. The metal bench was cold enough to hurt, but Emily barely noticed. Her denim jeans clung damply to her legs from sitting too long, and her knuckles were red from gripping a styrofoam cup that had long since gone cold. The coffee had cost her $1.75, money she didn't have to waste. But after 2 nights on the street, the warmth was more necessity than luxury. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, unless you counted 3 breath mints and a stale pack of crackers she'd found in her old backpack. The train station around her bustled with the usual indifference. Announcements echoed through the grimy air. People rushed past with umbrellas and backpacks, eyes glued to their phones or their feet. No one looked at her. That was the point, wasn't it? Cities were built for invisibility, and she had mastered that part. The quiet, slipping through the cracks kind of life where no one cared enough to ask your name. Emily tugged her jacket tighter around her, though it was barely more than threadbare canvas now. Her phone was dead. Her stomach growled again like a slow protest. She had exactly $10.32 in her purse. That $10 bill was her emergency fund, her last line. She hadn't even told her sister she was in the city. Too ashamed, too tired, too broken. She thought she had reached the end. But then he appeared. He looked like he'd been running for days. The man emerged from the station bathroom, hunched over, like pain lived in his spine. He was tall, lean, maybe early 40s, but weathered, unshaven, and soaked. A brown duffel bag hung from one shoulder, and his clothes were dirty. Too expensive for a homeless man, but too worn for a businessman. His eyes scanned the crowd with a kind of nervous calculation, like he was expecting someone to be right behind him. Then he saw her. Emily glanced away instinctively. Eye contact in public was dangerous, an invitation. But it was too late. His boots scuffed the pavement as he walked straight toward her. "Ma'am," he said, voice low and urgent. "I don't mean to scare you, I swear I don't, but I need help." Emily tightened her grip on her cup. "I don't have anything. I don't want trouble. I just need $10, a train ticket, please. I can pay you back. You can even hold my ID if you want." "I don't want your ID," she said flatly. "I don't even know who you are." "Exactly." He looked around, eyes sharp. "Which is why I'm asking you. You're not in this." "In what?" But he didn't answer that. Instead, he took a step closer and looked her right in the eye. Sometimes the people with nothing are the only ones left who know how to help. There it was again, that line, like he'd said it before, maybe to other strangers, maybe to no one. Emily hesitated. Everything in her body screamed to say no, but her hand was already moving to her purse. She touched the $10 bill like it might burn her fingers. She'd been saving it, for food, for a ticket home maybe, for anything but this. Still, she pulled it out and handed it to him. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just took the bill with a kind of solemn reverence. "You just changed everything," he whispered. Before she could ask what he meant, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. 3 hours passed. She didn't move from the bench. Rain came down harder, her jeans soaked through. The styrofoam cup finally slipped from her hand and rolled to the ground. People kept moving, as if she were invisible. Maybe she was. Then, just as she was about to get up, a man in a navy blue suit stopped in front of her. "Emily Rhodes," he asked. Her heart jumped. "Who's asking?" He handed her a sealed envelope. "Mr. Ellis said to deliver this to you personally. No exceptions." "Ellis? He said you'd understand. That you gave him something today he can never repay." Emily blinked. "That man?" But the suited man didn't respond. He just turned and walked away, brisk and silent, vanishing into the crowd as if he'd never been there. Emily opened the envelope slowly, fingers trembling. Inside was a crisp white check, not 100, not 1,000, $10,000, payable to Emily Rhodes, signed Michael Ellis. It didn't feel real. She turned the check over in her hands, half expecting it to evaporate. There was no note, no explanation, Just that ridiculous amount of money from a man who, hours ago, had looked like he couldn't afford a sandwich. Emily didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But later that night, the laughter died. It was nearly midnight when she got back to the tiny apartment she was crashing in, an abandoned unit in an unfinished housing block near the rail yard. She'd found it 2 days ago when the shelter turned her away again. It wasn't safe, and the door didn't lock properly, but it was dry. As she shut the creaky door behind her, she had the strange feeling of being watched. She ignored it. But at 2:13 a.m., the door handle jiggled, soft at first, then harder, then a loud bang as someone threw their weight into it. Emily leapt up, heart hammering. She grabbed her backpack and slipped out the back window, nearly twisting her ankle as she landed. She ran 2 blocks without stopping. By the time she returned in the morning, after hiding in an all-night diner, someone had broken in. They hadn't taken anything, but they'd left something. 2 small devices, one under the couch, one in the closet, behind her spare coat. She only noticed them because the blinking red light caught her eye when she turned off the lights. She Googled it later at a library. They were audio bugs, surveillance grade. She didn't even own anything worth stealing, unless it wasn't about theft, unless it was about that man, the check. The encounter at the train station. Emily's phone had been off, dead, but when she charged it, it lit up with 3 voicemails and 1 new text. The text came from an unknown number. No name, no history. "We know what he told you. Return what he gave you, or we come next." She dropped the phone, her stomach flipped. What he gave you, not money, information, a secret. Was the money just a cover, a diversion, or had she unknowingly stepped into something criminal, or worse? By the next morning, her sister had called 6 times. Emily finally picked up. "Emily," her sister said breathlessly, "there's a black SUV parked outside Mum's house. 2 men came by asking about you." "What? What did they say?" "They said you were involved in something federal. They flashed fake-looking badges. I didn't tell them anything, I swear." Emily's pulse thudded. "Don't open the door again. Don't talk to anyone. Not until I figure this out. You're scaring me. I'm scaring myself." That night, she returned to the station. Same bench, same flickering light overhead. Same crowd of people pretending not to see her. She was hoping, praying, to find the man again. Michael Ellis. But he was gone. She waited until the last train left, until the cleaning crew showed up. He never came. Instead, at 4:47 a.m., her phone buzzed. No caller ID. The message read, "They'll come for you at noon. If you want to live, don't be there." That was it, nothing more. Emily sat frozen on the bench, phone in hand, stomach twisted in a knot. Noon? Who was coming? Why? And what did they want with her? She'd just tried to help someone, just $10. A moment of kindness, but now she was being hunted, watched, threatened, and the man she'd helped, the stranger who vanished into the crowd, had left behind a trail of chaos. And maybe something even more dangerous, because something told. The money wasn't the only thing he gave her. No one gives that kind of money without a reason. The city had never felt this cold. Emily stood in the middle of the train station's early morning crowd, her hoodie pulled tight over her face, eyes constantly shifting. It was just past 6 a.m., and the air was heavy with the stink of wet concrete, diesel fumes, and brewing panic. Noon. Don't be there. The message played in her head like a ticking clock she couldn't turn off. She hadn't slept, not a minute. She'd walked all night, from the station to an open all-night fast food joint to a public park where even the benches had spikes now. She didn't know where to go, who to trust, and worst of all, what she was actually running from. Was it Michael Ellis, the strange man with haunted eyes and a $10,000 check, or was it the men in the SUV? The ones who'd come to her sister's door with fake badges and questions. She clutched the envelope tighter inside her coat. It felt radioactive now, too real, too dangerous, and far too expensive to be just kindness. No one gave that kind of money away without a reason. By 7:15 a.m., she found herself sitting in the back corner of a library on 12th Street. It was the only place open early enough where she could charge her phone and disappear behind rows of forgotten books. Her fingers trembled as she typed Michael Ellis into the search bar. Nothing helpful. Just dozens of people with the same name, none matching the face she remembered. Out of desperation, she opened Facebook, then LinkedIn, then Reddit. Nothing. It was like the man had never existed. She was just about to close the tab when something odd caught her eye. A Reddit post from 6 months ago in a conspiracy thread, buried under comments. If you ever meet a man named Michael Ellis who asks for train money, run. He isn't who he says he is. Her breath caught. She clicked the username, deleted, no more posts, just a digital ghost of someone who had seen what she saw, maybe even helped him. The post had 0 upvotes, no comments, no context, but the warning, it felt too specific to ignore. At 9:40 a.m., she ducked into a coffee shop and sat by the window, pretending to sip a tea she couldn't afford. Her reflection in the glass startled her, pale, sleepless. She barely recognized the girl staring back. Just days ago, she'd been desperate and invisible. Now she was being watched. The SUV had returned. This time, it was parked diagonally. Across from the coffee shop, blacked-out windows facing her. She couldn't see who was inside, but she felt them. Like her bones were wired for alarm now. Every hair on her arm stood up. At 9:46 a.m., a man stepped out of the vehicle, clean-shaven. Leather gloves, sharp eyes. Emily didn't wait. She grabbed her bag and bolted out the side door, rushing through alleyways until her lungs burned. Whoever they weren't just following, they were closing in. By the time the clock hit 11:17 a.m., she was back near the train station, standing across the street, hidden behind a row of newspaper boxes. Her legs ached. Her heart pounded. She knew she shouldn't be here. The message had said to stay away, but curiosity had won. She needed to know what happened at noon, what she had stumbled into, why a stranger had used her, and why others wanted to hurt her for it. At 11:59 a.m., her phone buzzed. A new number. One line, watch the news in 3 minutes, you'll understand. She stared at the message in disbelief. Her fingers moved on their own, typing in a news app and waiting. At exactly 12:02 p.m., the alert hit. Breaking, train station evacuated after. Explosion, unknown casualties. Emily's stomach dropped. She stared across the street. Plumes of smoke billowed from the southern exit of the train station. Sirens screamed. People ran in all directions. Firefighters pushed through. News vans whipped around the corner like sharks smelling blood. She couldn't breathe. That bench, the one she'd sat on 2 days ago, gone, scorched. Someone had tried to kill her. She staggered backward until her legs hit a wall. Tears filled her eyes. This was no misunderstanding. No act of kindness gone wrong. She was part of something, and she didn't even know what. The next 48 hours were chaos. Emily hid in motel lobbies, libraries, a bus station locker room. She barely ate. Her phone had gone off 3 more times. No. Hey, caller ID, all from the same person. They think you died. You bought yourself time. What he gave you is more than money. Don't trust anyone from your past, not even family. The paranoia grew like mold. She thought of her sister again. The SUV, the knock on her mum's door. She wanted to call, to warn them, to scream, "Run!" But she didn't, because if someone was watching her, they might be watching them too. She had to disappear, completely. On the 3rd night, she checked into a rundown motel under the name Sarah. Cash only. She lay in bed staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering if this was the end of her life as she knew it, or the start of something she couldn't yet define. And then, at 3:27 a.m., her phone buzzed again. This time, a photo. It was A grainy screenshot from a security camera, her standing beside Michael Ellis, handing him the $10 bill. Beneath the photo, "You were just the beginning." Emily couldn't sleep after that. She packed her things again and decided she had to find answers, not just survive. If this wasn't random, if she'd been chosen, she needed to know why. She started with the check. A banker friend of her father's had taught her once that the routing number on a check could lead you to the issuing bank, and maybe the account holder. At a public library, she dug into it and froze. The routing number didn't match any standard commercial bank. It matched a federal trust account, specifically Department of Justice, Witness Protection Funding. That made no sense. Michael Ellis had said nothing about being a witness, or about protection, or about her being involved in anything federal. But what if that's exactly what he was? A ghost trying to vanish, a man carrying secrets only the government or powerful enemies wanted to bury. She needed more. She needed to find someone who really knew who he was, and as she searched, one name kept popping up in adjacent articles and mentions from 5 years ago: Elijah Reeve, a disgraced ex-intelligence analyst who vanished after testifying against a private contractor accused of corruption, embezzlement and murder in overseas military ops. The story was buried, quiet, no conviction. Case closed after Elijah disappeared. But then she saw something that made her blood run cold. In a newspaper clipping from 2018, the photo beside the headline read, "Whistleblower Elijah Reeve says life in danger after leaked testimony." The man in the photo was Michael Ellis, Emily's. Hands shook so violently she had to sit down. He had changed his name, his identity, everything, and somehow he'd trusted her. But why? What had she done that made him hand over a check, and maybe a trail that others would kill for? And more terrifyingly, what did he leave behind inside that envelope she hadn't found yet? She pulled it out again, felt along the seams. The envelope was thicker than she remembered. Gently, she peeled apart the bottom edge, and something slipped out. A small memory card. No label. Hidden deep inside. She stared at it, in disbelief, whatever was on this card. People had already tried to kill her for it, and now she held it in the palm of her hand. The file that could burn the world. Emily stared at the tiny memory card in her hand, as if it might detonate. It was small, black, barely heavier than air. But she knew, whatever was on it had already cost lives. Someone had bombed a train station for this, and now she was holding it. Not because she'd earned it, not because she was prepared, but because she gave her last $10 to a stranger. That's what kept rattling in her brain. Why her? Why would Michael, Elijah, choose her? She looked around the dim motel room, the walls stained with years of strangers' secrets, the door chained shut with a chair pressed beneath the knob. Her body ached with exhaustion, but her heart thudded with rising urgency. She had to know. Whatever this card contained, it was the key to everything, but she couldn't risk putting it in her own phone. That was the first thing they'd trace. Instead, she pulled the hoodie back over her head, shoved the card deep into her sock, and slipped out the back stairwell. She walked 6 blocks before she found it. A dusty, old pawn shop with an outdated internet cafe in the back. The kind of place nobody asked questions, and everything ran on Windows 7. She paid in cash. No ID. Sat down. Inserted the memory card. For 5 seconds, nothing happened. The screen stayed blank. Then, folders. Dozens of them. Cryptic names like Tier 3, Firefly, Langdon Protocol, Cobalt Knight. She clicked the first one. Documents opened. Redacted government files, time-stamped videos, voice memos. She opened one. A blurry night vision recording of what looked like a village being torn apart by explosions. She could hear screaming in the background, soldiers yelling, a woman's voice crying in another language. Then another file, an audio recording, scratchy, low quality, male voice. We'll wipe the whole sector, no survivors, clean it up. No trails, other voice, including non-combatants, first voice, especially them. Emily froze. Her skin went ice cold. This wasn't just about corruption, this was about mass murder. She clicked more files, now trembling. One document mentioned shell companies laundering billions through fake aid organizations. Another showed bribes paid to UN officials. Another file, photos, bloodied bodies, a man in a US uniform kneeling beside a burning hut. She couldn't process it all. It was too much, too horrifying, and it was real. She clicked the final folder. Helios, failsafe. 1. On file, just one password-protected video. She cursed under her breath. She didn't have the password, but then she remembered. Back at the train station, Elijah, had whispered a strange word when he handed her the check. He said, "Tell them." She still remembers Bethlehem. She typed, Bethlehem. Nothing. Then she tried. She still remembers. Bethlehem. And the file unlocked. The screen flickered to life. A man sat at a desk, visibly shaking. It was Elijah, older, paler, eyes sunken. "If you're watching this," he began, "then I'm either dead or running again. And I've put you in danger. I'm sorry for that, but I had no choice." He swallowed hard. They covered up what happened in Garan province, buried it, paid everyone off. But I kept the files. I knew someone needed to know. If they find this, they'll kill you. But if you go silent, disappear, they'll win. Again. Just like they did with Lila. He looked down, then back up. "You need to take this to only one person. Her name is Dana Quill. She was a whistleblower before I ever was. She lives off-grid in Alberta now. She'll know what to do." He paused, visibly pained. "I gave you that money to get away. But if you stayed, if you're watching this, then maybe you're braver than I ever was. Be careful. They'll come through people you trust. Don't call your mother. Don't trust anyone named Langston. And if a woman with a dragonfly tattoo ever finds you, run." The video ended. Emily sat back, her ears ringing. Garan province, Dana Quill, Langston, dragonfly tattoo. So many names, so many threads. She had no idea where to start. But one thing was clear. She couldn't go home. She couldn't go back. And she was carrying a secret that could burn the world. She left the pawn shop and vanished into a crowd. 2 hours later, her motel room was raided by federal agents. She saw it on the news. Anonymous tip. They showed images of a woman resembling her, calling her armed and dangerous, accused of domestic terrorism. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. "They're blaming you. You have 24 hours. Go north. Don't stop." By midnight, Emily was on a bus headed toward the Canadian border, heart racing every time it slowed. She didn't know who had sent the message or how they knew where she was, but they were right. She had to keep moving. She had to find Dana Quill. The border town was cold and quiet. She got off in a place called Blaine, Washington, a sleepy border checkpoint with only a diner, 2 motels, and a gas station. She paid a stranger to drive her across, used the last of the cash. The man, a trucker, named Reed, didn't ask questions. He seemed kind, even offered her a sandwich. But Emily had stopped trusting kindness, especially from strangers. Halfway across the border, she saw a black van pull into the rear view. It didn't flash lights, didn't honk, but it followed. "Faster," she whispered. Reed glanced in the mirror, eyebrows rising. "Friend of yours?" "No." He didn't ask again. He floored it. 10 minutes later, they lost the van on a country road flanked by dense pine trees and fog. When he dropped her off near a broken-down ranger's station, he said, "You didn't hear it from me, but there's a woman a few miles north, lives alone. Some folks say she used to be CIA, others say she's just crazy. Either way, people leave her alone." Emily nodded. She didn't say thank you. She just got out and walked into the forest. The cabin was almost invisible, buried beneath trees and brush. Solar panels on the roof, barbed wire lining the back fence. A chimney puffed soft smoke into the grey sky. Emily stepped forward slowly. No gate, no doorbell, just a shotgun barrel sticking out the window. "Stop! Right there," came a raspy voice. Emily froze. "I'm looking for Dana Quill," she said. Silence. "Michael Ellis sent me," she added. "He said you'd understand about Garin." More silence. Then the barrel disappeared. 10 seconds later, the door opened. A woman, early 60s, fierce eyes, graying braid, stood there holding a rifle. "You've got 5 seconds to convince me you're not one of them." Emily didn't blink. "He gave me a memory card. Said you're the only one who could expose what's on it." Dana's eyes flickered, and then she stepped aside. "Get in," she said. "They're probably 10 minutes behind you." Inside, the cabin was like stepping into another life. Maps, radios, stacks of documents. A fire crackled in the hearth. The windows were fortified with steel panels. Emily sat across from Dana and placed the card on the table. Dana didn't touch it. She just asked, "Do you know what this is?" "I do now," Emily said. "It's proof." Dana leaned in. Voice lower now. "No, it's not just proof. It's a death sentence to anyone who carries it." She picked it up with metal tongs and placed it into a hidden drive. As the files loaded, Dana's expression darkened. "Dear God," she muttered. And then her eyes flicked to Emily. "You realize you're not walking away from this clean, right?" Emily said nothing. She didn't need to. Outside, the wind howled, and just beyond the ridge, 3 figures moved through the trees, dressed in black with weapons drawn. They weren't here to talk. The Betrayal came, wearing a familiar face. Emily barely had time to blink before Dana lunged toward the window. With one swift motion, the ex-operative yanked a panel of wood down and killed the lights. The cabin plunged into a tense, shadowed silence. 3 of them, Dana whispered. Southridge, quiet, coordinated, definitely not amateurs. Emily's throat tightened. "They followed me." "No," Dana muttered. "They were already on the way." Dana moved fast for someone her age. In less than a minute, she'd pulled out a hidden drawer beneath the floorboards, revealing 2 pistols, a shortwave radio, and a flashlight wrapped in duct tape. "You ever shot a gun?" she asked, tossing a Glock toward Emily. Emily caught it barely and shook her head. "Only in video games." Dana loaded a second magazine and slipped it into her coat. "Good. Don't shoot unless you're staring at a face that wants you dead." Which tonight might be all of them. Outside, footsteps crunched softly over frost-hardened leaves. The sound was almost ghostly, calculated, deliberate. These weren't bounty hunters. They weren't local thugs. They were trained, and they were here for the file. Emily crouched behind the kitchen counter while Dana crept toward the back. Every breath Emily took felt like a scream. Her heart pounded in her ears like a war drum. If they got caught, it wouldn't be a warning. It wouldn't be a trial. They'd vanish just like Elijah. The first shot came through the window, sharp, precise, glass shattering beside Emily's head. Dana returned fire instantly, but Emily barely registered it. Her legs moved on instinct, dragging her toward the hallway. Then an explosion. The front door burst open with a blinding flashbang. Emily's ears rang. Light flared. Shadows danced. She heard Dana scream something, then a struggle. Furniture crashing. More shots. Emily stumbled through the back of the cabin, down a narrow cellar stairwell. She slammed the trapdoor shut behind her, plunging into pitch blackness. Dust, mold, cold earth. She crawled forward, hands scraping stone, until her fingers found a metal hatch. It wouldn't budge. Above her, silence, then footsteps. A slow creak of the trapdoor. A beam of light pierced the dark. Emily held her breath, and then the light vanished. The trapdoor closed. She didn't know how long she stayed frozen, minutes, hours. Finally, when she dared to move again, she twisted the hatch again with all her strength, and this time it gave way. She emerged into forest. Night. Freedom. But not safety. Dana was gone, taken or worse, and Emily was completely alone again. She didn't stop running until morning. The sun cut through the trees like judgment. Emily collapsed against a tree, muddy, shaking, soaked in sweat. Her phone was long dead. No food, no water, only the gun, and the memory card Dana had stitched into the lining of Emily's jacket before the cabin was attacked. "If they find it," Dana had whispered, "they'll kill you. If you destroy it, 1,000 more will die. Choose wisely." Emily had no idea how to choose. She hadn't signed up for any of this. She wasn't a spy. She was a girl who used to work night shifts and scrape for bus fare, and yet now, somehow, her hands held evidence that could bring down governments. Her stomach growled. Her legs ached. But deeper than all of that was a whisper growing louder inside her. "You can't run forever." Later that day, she found a gas station outside a village called Crooked Pines. She ducked inside, bought a sandwich with the last of her change, and sat near the restroom stall where she plugged in her phone just long enough to get a signal. No messages except one from a number she didn't recognize. "Meet me where the world ends, midnight. You'll understand." Elijah. It couldn't be. He was dead. She'd seen it, or at least heard the news. Emily stared at the text for 5 full minutes, then typed back, "Is this real?" No answer, but something in her gut, somewhere between hope and dread, said, "Yes, where the world ends." Turned out to be an abandoned observatory deep in the hills of Glacier National Park, Montana. She borrowed a bike from a hostel, rode all day, hid in tree cover from passing cars, ate pine nuts and rainwater, and somehow she made it. The observatory was eerie, silent, the kind of place where voices echoed even if no one spoke. Emily stepped inside at 11:58 p.m. At 12:01, the door creaked. She turned around and gasped. It was him, alive barely. His face was bruised, limp in his leg, arm in a sling. But the eyes, those haunted eyes, were still the same. "Elijah," she whispered. He didn't smile. He just said, "I never meant for you to get involved." Emily stepped forward, emotion bubbling in her throat. "They're calling me a terrorist. They burned Dana's house. I saw things I can't unsee. Why did you drag me into this?" He looked at her, tired. "Because you gave me your last $10. That doesn't explain anything." "Yes," he said. "It does." He pulled a folded paper from his coat and handed it to her. It was a newspaper clipping, old, faded. "Girl's act of kindness saves veteran from suicide." She blinked. It was her, a high school photo, a small-town write-up. She'd found a homeless man sitting near the bridge years ago, and instead of walking past, she gave him a coat and a sandwich. He'd later confessed that was the only thing that stopped him from jumping. Elijah looked at her with something close to grief. "That was me. The first time." Emily's mind reeled. "That was you?" "I was already broken back then. After Garin, after the cover-ups, they erased my name, labeled me unstable. But you reminded me that I was still human. So when I saw you again at the station, I thought maybe this was fate. Maybe someone like you could carry the truth." Emily's knees buckled slightly. Everything was crashing together. The past, the present. Her life, unremarkable, ordinary, was now tangled with unspeakable horror and hope. And then another voice spoke. "Touching reunion. Shame it won't last." Emily whipped around. A woman stood at the door. Jet black hair, leather jacket, and a tattoo, dragonfly, curled behind her ear. "Langston sends his regards," she said, raising a pistol. Elijah pushed Emily down as the gun fired. The bullet missed, but barely. Then chaos. Elijah rolled to cover. Emily crawled behind an old telescope. More shots rang out. Elijah returned fire, but he was injured. Slower, Weaker, Emily reached for her own gun, shaking. Her hands trembled so badly she dropped it once. Picked it up again, aimed. The woman advanced, and just before she fired again, Emily pulled the trigger. Once, twice. The gun kicked harder than she expected. Her ears rang. The woman collapsed, bleeding, alive but out cold. Silence followed. Then Elijah coughed, deep, pained. "You did good," Emily stood shaking. "I just shot someone." "You saved us both." Tears blurred her vision. "What now?" He limped forward. "Now, we take this to the one person who can use it." Emily stared at him. "Dana's gone." "Not Dana," he said quietly. "Her contact. There's someone in Toronto, high level. Still clean? Who?" Elijah looked toward the eastern sky where dawn was just breaking. "She used to be my wife." Emily didn't ask more. She couldn't. There was too much blood, too many questions. But as they slipped into the forest before more enemies arrived, one thing burned in her chest. This wasn't just Elijah's war anymore. It was hers, too. She had already crossed a line, and there was no going back. The ex-wife's secret Emily had never crossed a border with a bullet wound in her leg, a hunted man limping beside her, and a flash drive worth $1 billion zipped inside her jacket. But that's exactly what happened 2 days later when she walked into Canada under a false identity. The man who helped them was a quiet driver named Marco, former medic, old friend of Elijah's. He didn't ask questions, just handed them fake passports and said, "You have one shot, don't miss." Emily tried to sleep in the back of the van, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw blood. Dana, the cabin, the flash of the pistol in her hand. Elijah had barely spoken since the observatory. His wounds had reopened. His fever was rising. She wasn't sure he'd survive the trip, but he kept whispering the same name over and over, like it was the last safe place in the world. Natalie. Toronto was colder than Emily expected. Snow fell like ash as they pulled up to a narrow townhouse. In an old part of the city, it didn't look like much. Chipped bricks, broken gutters, but Elijah said it was where the woman who once knew every secret of the intelligence world now lived in silence. "She doesn't trust anyone," Elijah said. "Especially not me." Emily frowned. "Then why are we here?" He looked at her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Because the truth is bigger than trust." Natalie opened the door before they even knocked. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Early 40s, sharp cheekbones, clear eyes, a scar beneath her right eye. She didn't look surprised, just tired. "You look like hell," she told Elijah. He nearly collapsed. "Nice to see you too." She stepped aside. "Come in before someone follows you." Inside, the house was minimal, books stacked in corners, maps on the walls, 2 laptops glowing quietly beside a cold cup of tea. Emily felt like she'd walked into a war bunker, disguised as a living room. Natalie looked her over. "Who's the girl?" "I'm the one who saved him," Emily said, too tired to pretend anymore. "Twice now." Natalie blinked, then smirked. "Well, he always did need saving." She helped Elijah to the couch and unzipped his coat. "Gunshot again? You always were dramatic." "I brought the drive," he whispered. "The real one." That got Natalie's attention. Her eyes snapped to Emily. "You have it?" Emily nodded slowly, unzipping the inner lining of her coat and pulling out the memory card Dana had sewn there. Natalie took it, looked it over, then turned on her laptop and slid it in. Seconds later, her screen lit up, and what she saw made her flinch. There were names, coordinates, surveillance footage, wiretaps, explosive memos from covert black sites, audio recordings of top generals laughing about acceptable collateral damage, bank transfers tying senators to weapons sales in failed states, and beneath it all, a set of files labeled only Garan Protocol, Terminate and Erase. Natalie stood up so fast her chair fell back. This can't be real." "It is," Elijah said. She covered her mouth. This would destroy half of Washington, and London, and Zurich. My God, this is why they tried to kill you." He nodded once. "They killed our whole unit to bury it." Natalie stared at him. "And you kept this all these years?" "I didn't want revenge," he said quietly. "But when they came after her, after Emily, I knew it was time." Emily sat silent as the two former lovers stared at each other, like two ghosts from the same grave. Then Natalie turned to her. "You understand what happens now, don't you?" Emily swallowed. "Not really." Natalie's voice was calm, cold. "If we release this, it will start a chain reaction across the intelligence world. People will vanish. Alliances will collapse. Some of the people on this list are still in office." "And if we don't release it?" Emily asked. "Then more Danas die," Elijah said hoarsely. Natalie looked at the drive in her hand like it was radioactive. "There's someone I trust," she said finally. "A reporter, Canadian clean. We go to her on record. If we disappear, the story still runs." Elijah tried to sit up. "We go tonight." Natalie held up a hand. "You need rest." "I don't need rest. I need justice." Emily put her hand on his shoulder. "He's right, we can't wait. They're already looking for us." Natalie stared at them both, and finally nodded. "Then let's finish what we started." But they were already too late. By the time they reached the reporter's apartment, she was gone. Not missing, not dead. Bought, the door was unlocked. On the floor was a note written in rushed handwriting. "They offered me protection. I took it. I'm sorry. M." Natalie's face went pale. She folded. "Damn it." Elijah slumped against the wall. "Then it's us, just us." Emily looked down at the flash drive in Natalie's hand. "Is there another way?" Natalie's fingers tightened around it. "There's always another way, but it comes at a cost." That night, Natalie made a call she swore she'd never make. Again, to an old contact inside the BBC, a man who owed her everything and would risk his life for one final story. "We go live at 7 a.m. London time," she said. "He'll broadcast everything, files, names, video. Once it's out, they can't unring the bell." Elijah breathed heavily. "Then we need to vanish. Once it goes out, we'll have a target on our backs for the rest of our lives." Natalie nodded. "I have safe houses, IDs, we'll scatter, lay low, and maybe one day we breathe free again." But Emily didn't answer. She was staring out the window. Snowflakes were falling. A van she'd never seen before was parked across the street inside, a silhouettes. 2, maybe 3. She stepped back. "They're here." Natalie turned off the light instantly. "How long?" "I don't know," Emily whispered, "but they're watching the house." Elijah tried to stand, but his leg buckled. "We're not ready," Natalie said. "They don't care." She pulled a revolver from under the couch, handed Emily the Glock. "You remember how to shoot?" "Unfortunately." Natalie took one last look at Elijah. "You stay here. I'll draw them to the alley. Emily, when I give the word run." "Run where?" "To the pier," she said. "Boats waiting. No one will track you by water." "What about you?" Natalie's eyes softened. "This was never my redemption story. It's yours now." The next few minutes happened too fast to fully remember. Gunfire shattered the window. Emily and Natalie returned fire. Then smoke bombs, flashbangs. Someone screamed. Emily didn't know who. All she knew was running. Cold wind. Blood on her hand. Footsteps behind her. Natalie yelling, "Now! Go!" A final shot. Then silence. Emily reached the dock just before sunrise. A man stood beside a fishing boat, waving her aboard. "You, Emily?" She nodded, breathless. "Elijah's already below. You're safe now." But when she climbed aboard and found Elijah lying in the bunk, she saw it instantly. He wasn't asleep. He was gone. His chest wasn't rising. His lips were blue. There was no pulse, just a folded note in his hand, her name written across it. The final note. Emily stood on the cold deck, wind slicing across her cheeks, eyes locked on the note Elijah had died clutching. The paper was crumpled, damp from his hand, and slightly smeared, but his handwriting was unmistakable. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Emily, if you're reading this, then I didn't make it. That's okay. I made peace with that the moment you handed me that $10 bill. I just didn't know it yet. You changed everything for me. You didn't see a broken man or a wanted ghost. You saw someone worth saving. Don't let them silence this. Don't let them bury the truth again. You're stronger than you know. I'm sorry I couldn't finish this with you, but I know you will. All my life, I ran from what I'd done, from who I was. But in the end, it wasn't my name or past that mattered. It was what I stood for when it counted. You count. You always did. Now run. Her tears came fast, not soft, loud, broken sobs that echoed off the walls of the cabin. She fell too, her knees clutching the note to her chest. It didn't feel fair, not after all they'd been through, not after surviving bullet wounds, betrayals, freezing nights in nowhere towns. He was supposed to make it, but deep down she knew he had already won. He'd handed her the torch. Now it was her turn to carry it. The man steering the boat, Natalie's last contact, handed her a satellite phone. He said if anything happened to him, I was to get you to the border and make sure you call this number. Emily took the phone with numb fingers and dialed. A calm voice answered on the third ring. This is Rowan. She hesitated. Elijah's dead, but I have the files. Silence. Then, you're the girl. She didn't ask how he knew. She just said, what now? We finish it. Rowan was real, and he was ready. He was former MI6, had spent the last decade exposing human trafficking rings and political corruption. The last few years, he'd been building a covert network of journalists, hackers, and whistleblowers, people desperate for the kind of truth Elijah died protecting. Emily met him in person 3 days later in a safe house just outside Edinburgh. He didn't smile when she walked in. He didn't shake her hand. He just said, we go live in 20 hours. Once it's out, it can't be taken down. Multiple mirrors, decentralized. This will burn cities. Emily stared at the wall of monitors, hard drives, and equipment. And what happens to me? Rowan looked at her with the first trace of humanity. They'll come after you, with everything they have. She nodded. I don't care anymore. The video went live at 7 a.m. London time. Emily's face wasn't shown. Her voice was masked, but her words were clear. They killed him because he tried to tell the truth. Because we live in a world where secrets matter more than lives. But not today. Today you'll see what they tried to hide. The files followed, footage of illegal black sites, wiretaps of high-ranking officials ordering covert hits, financial trails leading to illegal arms deals, child labor factories, and assassinations, masked as suicides. The Garan Protocol itself, a global operation designed to erase entire identities and histories of anyone who became a threat. Within hours, the video hit 1 million views. By noon, major news outlets were forced to cover it. Governments scrambled to deny involvement. Interpol opened formal investigations. 4 resignations happened that day. 3 arrests, 1 suicide, and the world kept watching. But Emily didn't. She was already gone, with a new name, new papers, and a silent promise taped to the inside of her jacket. She scattered Elijah's ashes on the cliffs of County Clare, where he'd once told her he wanted to see the sea one last time. She whispered a thank you and a goodbye. 1 year later, the world didn't end, but it changed. The Garan Protocol became a cautionary phrase used in journalism schools. Dozens of agents turned whistleblowers. War crimes were uncovered. Sanctions passed. Investigations reopened. The faces behind it would never serve enough time. But the world knew now, and it couldn't unknow. Emily ran a bookstore in a quiet Irish town under a name that didn't belong to her, but fit better than any name ever had. Every now and then, someone would walk in, recognize her voice from the masked video, and ask. If it was really her, she always said no. But once, an older woman with silver hair and watery eyes said, "If it was you, I just want to say thank you. My son was in one of those black sites. We thought he was dead, but he's alive now." Because of that video, Emily didn't speak, just handed her a book. No charge, she said. Some nights she took out Elijah's letter, read it by candlelight, and remembered the man who changed everything with a $10 bill and a quiet kind of courage. She didn't believe in fate, but she did believe in choices, and that sometimes the smallest ones lead to the loudest truths. Final line. In a world full of silence, she chose to be the echo that never dies. The end.